Peter poses the question, what would happen if Earth and all solid ground suddenly stopped rotating, while the atmosphere kept its original speed? The short answer is that almost everyone would die, and only afterward would things get interesting. At the equator, Earth's surface normally moves at about 470 meters per second, a bit over 1,000 miles per hour, relative to its axis. If the ground instantly stopped but the air did not, the atmosphere at the equator would suddenly be moving over the surface at 470 meters per second, which is faster than the 343 meters per second threshold for supersonic speed. The strongest winds would be near the equator, but any location between 42 degrees north and 42 degrees south, home to about 85% of the world's population, would also experience sudden supersonic winds. These extreme winds would only last a few minutes before friction with the surface slowed the lower atmosphere. However, those minutes would be sufficient to destroy almost all human structures. Even buildings that survive the wind would likely be destroyed by airborne debris. Even a bunker capable of withstanding 1,000 miles per hour winds could be destroyed if an upwind bunker becomes a supersonic projectile. Places outside the supersonic zone would not fare much better. For example, Boston sits just beyond that threshold, yet the winds there would still reach twice the strength of the most powerful tornadoes ever observed. Buildings would be flattened or detached from their foundations and hurled away. No major city is located far enough from the equator to avoid destruction. Even the northernmost city on Earth, in Svalbard, would still face winds similar to today's most intense tropical cyclones. Despite the devastation, humanity would not go extinct. While very few individuals on the surface would survive the initial event due to flying debris and collapsing structures, many people located underground or in deep facilities would survive. The personnel at the Amundsen Scott South Pole Station would also survive the immediate winds, because the rotational speed at the poles is effectively zero. They would simply lose communication with the outside world until noticing that the sun was no longer moving across the sky, leading to considerable confusion. Meanwhile, conditions near the equator would become extremely unusual. The violent winds over the oceans would atomize the surface water, erasing any clear boundary between ocean and atmosphere. The friction-induced heating would warm the air, while deeper ocean water, which sits at about 4 degrees Celsius, would be drawn upward, vaporized, and carried into higher atmospheric layers. This process would likely trigger intense global thunderstorms over the oceans. The momentum of the atmosphere would also generate massive waves traveling west to east. Any coastline facing west would be struck by the largest storm surges in history, a combination of wind-driven waves and tsunami-like behavior, sending walls of water many miles inland. As things settled, dense fog would form above the cold ocean waters. With Earth no longer rotating, the regular day-night cycle would end. The sun would still rise and set once per orbit, producing a year-long day, consisting of roughly 6 months of daylight followed by 6 months of darkness. The length of the month would not change, since the moon would keep orbiting Earth. In addition, the moon would gradually transfer angular momentum and slowly accelerate Earth's rotation again, while simultaneously slowing its own orbital motion. Over extremely long time spans, this process would take around 3,000 years to complete. Eventually, someone could once again ask, what if Earth suddenly stopped spinning?